A single hug can completely change the way a woman sees you. It can create warmth, trust, and connection, or it can instantly make her uncomfortable and ensure she never wants to experience that moment again. What makes this so surprising is that most men have no idea which impression they're leaving behind. Many people think a hug is just a simple greeting, two people briefly embracing before moving on with their day. But human psychology tells a different story. The moment physical contact happens, our brains begin processing information at an incredible speed. Within seconds, people form judgments about comfort, safety, confidence, and even personality traits. Long before words can explain anything, touch has already communicated a message. That's why understanding the mistakes men make during hugs is so important. Most of these mistakes are not malicious. In fact, many come from good intentions. The problem is that good intentions don't always create good experiences. Sometimes a man thinks he's being friendly, affectionate, or charming when the woman experiencing the hug is interpreting something completely different. To understand why this matters, imagine this situation. You've been talking to someone for weeks. The conversations are exciting, the chemistry feels natural, and you're genuinely looking forward to meeting. Finally, the day arrives. You meet in person, the conversation flows effortlessly, and everything seems perfect. Then the date ends, one hug happens, and suddenly something feels off. Attraction disappears, excitement fades, the connection that seemed so promising moments earlier is gone. That might sound dramatic, but it happens more often than people realize. The reason is simple. A hug isn't just physical contact, it's communication. Without speaking a single word, a hug can communicate confidence, nervousness, warmth, insecurity, comfort, respect, neediness, or even entitlement. The body often reveals things that words try to hide. The first mistake many men make is what could be called the dead fish hug. This happens when someone goes through the motions without actually being present. The arms barely make contact. The hands rest awkwardly for a second. The body remains stiff and distant. Instead of feeling warm, the interaction feels reluctant. Many men believe this approach communicates respect because they're trying not to invade personal space. Unfortunately, that's rarely how it feels. More often, it feels like the person doesn't actually want to be there. Even in completely platonic situations, nobody enjoys feeling like they're being hugged out of obligation. A hug should feel intentional, not overwhelming, not intense, but genuine. When someone commits to the moment, even briefly, the interaction feels natural instead of awkward. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the crushing hug. This is the person who hugs as if they're competing in a strength contest. Their grip becomes so tight that breathing feels optional. What was supposed to be a friendly greeting suddenly feels like a physical challenge. The issue isn't strength itself. The issue is awareness. When someone ignores another person's comfort level, even unintentionally, it creates discomfort. Human connection grows when people feel relaxed and safe. It doesn't grow when someone feels trapped inside another person's enthusiasm. A hug should create comfort, not require endurance. Another surprisingly common mistake is the constant back pat. You've probably seen it before. Someone hugs for a second and immediately begins tapping the other person on the back repeatedly. The gesture often feels less like affection and more like a signal that the hug needs to end immediately. In many situations, especially among friends, this isn't a major problem. However, when there is potential romantic interest, excessive backpatting often communicates nervousness and emotional distance. Instead of allowing a natural moment of connection, it interrupts the interaction. Sometimes the most confident thing a person can do is simply relax and allow the hug to happen naturally without trying to manage every second of it. Then there are the wandering hands. This mistake creates discomfort faster than almost any other. A hug begins normally, but then the hands slowly move into areas where they clearly don't belong. Whether intentional or accidental, the result is the same. What could have been a positive interaction instantly becomes uncomfortable. Respecting boundaries is not complicated. If your hands land in an appropriate place, leave them there. A hug is not an opportunity to test limits. The most attractive people are often those who demonstrate awareness and self-control. They don't create uncertainty about their intentions because their actions consistently communicate respect. Another mistake involves mismatching the energy of the greeting. Imagine someone clearly opens their arms for a warm hug, only to receive a detached one arm side hug in return. The interaction immediately feels uneven. Context matters. Side hugs have their place. They work well in professional environments, casual greetings, and situations where people aren't particularly close. Problems arise when someone offers warmth and receives distance instead. Human beings naturally mirror social behavior. When one person offers connection and the other responds with emotional distance, the interaction can feel surprisingly disappointing. Perhaps one of the most uncomfortable mistakes involves treating a hug like an opportunity for investigation. Some people become overly focused on personal details during the embrace. They linger too close, invade personal space, or engage in behavior that feels overly intimate considering the level of familiarity. The problem isn't appreciation, the problem is timing. Every relationship develops through stages. Comfort and trust grow gradually. When someone skips ahead too quickly, it can feel invasive rather than affectionate. Intimacy becomes meaningful when it's built on mutual comfort, not rushed expectations. The strongest connections develop naturally because both people feel ready for each step as it happens. Another major mistake is holding on too long. Most hugs follow a natural rhythm. They begin, create a brief moment of connection, and then end. But occasionally, someone refuses to recognize that the moment has already passed. At first, everything feels normal. Then a few extra seconds pass. The other person subtly begins pulling away. Maybe their posture shifts. Maybe their arms loosen. Maybe they physically lean back. Yet the hug continues. This creates discomfort because it removes choice from the interaction. The moment someone wants to leave a hug, the respectful response is simple: let them go. Confidence isn't demonstrated by extending physical contact beyond its welcome. Confidence is demonstrated by recognizing signals and responding appropriately. Timing also matters before a hug even begins. Some men assume every positive interaction automatically deserves physical contact. They meet someone, exchange a few words, and immediately move in for a hug. Unfortunately, not everyone wants that level of familiarity right away. Social awareness means recognizing the difference between friendliness and invitation. Sometimes a handshake is appropriate, sometimes a wave is appropriate, sometimes a hug is appropriate. The ability to read the situation is far more attractive than assuming every interaction should follow the same script. One of the most overlooked mistakes happens during the hug itself. Physically, the person is present. Mentally, they're somewhere else entirely. They're looking around the room, checking their phone, scanning for someone more interesting to talk to, or paying attention to everything except the person they're hugging. People notice this immediately. Presence is powerful because it's rare. In a world filled with distractions, giving someone your full attention for even a few seconds stands out. A hug should feel like a genuine interaction, not something squeezed in between other priorities. Then there's the tendency to over-explain the moment. Some people feel uncomfortable with silence, so they narrate everything. They comment on the hug, analyze the hug, joke about the hug, and somehow transform a simple gesture into a performance. The irony is that hugs already communicate what needs to be communicated. Warmth doesn't require narration. Comfort doesn't require commentary. Often, the most memorable interactions are the simplest ones because they feel natural instead of forced. When you look at all these mistakes together, a clear pattern emerges. None of them are really about hugging, they're about awareness. Every uncomfortable hug can usually be traced back to the same root problem: failing to pay attention to the other person's experience. Some people become so focused on their own intentions that they forget to notice how their actions are being received. Others become so focused on appearing confident that they stop paying attention altogether. Yet genuine confidence and awareness go hand in hand. The people who create the best impressions are rarely the ones following complicated rules. They're simply paying attention. They notice body language. They respect boundaries. They match energy levels. They understand timing. Most importantly, they recognize that every interaction involves two people, not just themselves. A good hug is surprisingly simple. It's warm without being overwhelming. It's confident without being aggressive. It's respectful without feeling distant. It lasts long enough to create connection, but not long enough to create discomfort. It communicates genuine goodwill without demanding anything in return. What makes a hug memorable isn't technique, it's intention combined with awareness. When someone feels comfortable around you, they're not usually thinking about where your hands were positioned or whether the hug lasted exactly the right number of seconds. They're remembering how the interaction made them feel. Did they feel respected? Did they feel comfortable? Did they feel safe? Did they feel seen? Those emotional impressions matter far more than any specific movement. And that's why understanding these mistakes can be so valuable. Not because you need a complicated checklist, but because awareness transforms every interaction. The more attention you pay to the person in front of you, the more naturally positive your interactions become. At the end of the day, a hug is one of humanity's oldest forms of communication. Long before people learned to express themselves through complex language, physical connection communicated comfort, safety, affection, and belonging. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that many people have become disconnected from the simple skill of paying attention. The good news is that awareness can be learned. The moment you stop focusing entirely on yourself and start paying attention to the experience of the other person, everything becomes easier. Conversations improve, relationships improve, first impressions improve, and yes, even something as simple as a hug becomes more meaningful, because the best hugs aren't remembered for their duration or technique. They're remembered because, for a brief moment, they made another person feel comfortable, respected, and genuinely appreciated. And in a world where genuine attention has become increasingly rare, that kind of experience is something people never forget.